Welcome to Soltron. This is a video review for Glory Alliance Longarm. Here he is with some other figures from this line. And here he is with Transformers. You can see he's above leader class size, just slightly. And here's a look at the instructions. Nothing that interesting, it's just black and white. And then on the back side it's got the instructions for the Headmaster gimmick. And here we have the 360 view of the robot. So he's got really good proportions. This was actually the robot from season 2 that I was most excited about. This is the one that inspired me to order the whole set. So yeah, he's got pretty good looking proportions. I'd say he's probably like a 8 out of 10. Really solid looking robot. I like it a lot. And you're going to hear me say this about every single one of these robots. The head sculpt is pretty weak. It's got this double chin kind of look. It's very chunky. The face is like too small compared to the size of the head. It just doesn't really work, especially compared to how sleek and awesome looking the body is. It just kind of ruins the effect. The head just does not match, unfortunately, and that's because of the Headmaster gimmick. But yeah, really good looking body. I am pretty pleased with the rest of it. And then of course he's got the really cool, let's see, you can also orient the blades so that they're all kind of facing up, like a set of swords and like samurai armor or something. So that's kind of a cool effect that you can do with him. But the nice thing about all these blades is that they can actually all be removed. And this should just be standard for all helicopter robots, is their blades should just become swords. Like, what else are you going to do with these things? And then they can fit into his hands. Unfortunately, the handles are small and his fingers are kind of weak, so he actually cannot, they'll kind of just rotate in his hands. You could probably just get like a rubber band and wrap it around the handles so that this isn't happening, but it kind of just does this, unfortunately. But yeah, he does look pretty cool holding his swords. Oh wait, that one's actually holding in pretty well. How's it? Yeah, this one just happened to have like friction in the right place and it was holding it really well until I picked it up and looked at it. So it's just, yeah, they just don't work out quite right. But he's got good articulation, so you can get pretty good poses with him holding these swords. Okay, there you go. So there's like a cool sword wielding pose. Let's see. So he's got articulated fingers, so he can open and close his hands. And then his wrists are on ball joints, so you can get a lot of good range of motion out of there. So you can get some really good sword wielding poses. So that's very nice. He's got rotating biceps, double jointed elbows, so you can get more than the 90 degrees. And then he's got a friction kind of forward and backwards. This is kind of a weird joint. It feels like it's running into something. It feels a little bit limited. It's just going to go up and back that far. So I don't know what the deal with that is. And it's a little bit loose, but he can still hold his swords. And then the head just pivots back and forth. And the head is just on this like friction peg right there. It just pegs nicely in there. And then he's got a clicking waist. So that's ratcheted, and then full outward ratchet, so you can see the universal joints holding this all together. It's a little bit tighter than it needs to be, but it's not bad. And then a full forward and backward kick. Thigh rotation, also on strong ratchets. And then a knee that does less than 90, unfortunately. And then his ankle does have a ball joint, it looks like. Yeah, it's a ball joint ankle, so you're going to get some good articulation out of that. So pretty modern articulation. They did a good job on everything. His articulation holds up really well. In hand, the figure feels kind of like, it's kind of hard to say. The plastic is definitely a little bit light. It feels maybe like the tabs could be prone to breaking. It feels a little bit like the brittle kind of plastic. Not like the kind of plastic they use for Transformers. So I'd say this guy's probably like a 7. You do need to take a little bit of care when handling this figure. But yeah, he looks really good, right? I gotta say, the colors just really pop. I'm really pleased with the translucent plastic. I think the hip skirts don't really fit with the rest of his aesthetic, but overall, really great looking helicopter robot. So to transform him, we can just go ahead and pop all these out just so they don't get in the way. You can transform him without doing that. You do have to remove the head. That's unavoidable. Oh yeah, and then he does have, so there's a closer look at his head, and then he does have the headmaster gimmick. So his head will transform into a tiny robot. And then he's got this piece up here, his parts forming. You have to remove that. And it just pegs into his back here. It doesn't really serve as a shield or anything. And then you got this tiny little robot who like comes up to his shin, maybe a little bit, almost his knee, but very tiny headmaster. Still got some detail on the face, but unfortunately no paint to really get the detail across, but not bad looking. Really good articulation on this guy. You'll see it in my other reviews, but he can bend his elbow, rotate his bicep. He's got a ball joint shoulder, ball joint neck, and then universal hips. And then he's got no thigh rotation, and he's got 90 degrees in the knee. So to transform this guy, we're going to, let's see. So the first thing we can do is actually hinge this, and this has got a second position back here, which is for helicopter mode. You can close up this little thing. It's kind of pointless. And then you can, the torso here is just frictioned into place and it tabs. So you can just unlock that. And then you're going to rotate this into place here. So you get the front of the helicopter, and then the nose cone will just stick out, and then the tire can kind of come down. And then for the back, you're going to do the old Combiner Wars telescoping of the leg, unfortunately. So it's got this armature, and that's just going to let the leg telescope into itself. The other figures, the cop and the construction vehicle, they actually have telescoping legs. So this guy was a little bit cheaped out by having these like cost-cutting legs where you have to telescope it into the leg yourself, but it's not too bad. He feels pretty good. Everything pegs together nicely. And then you're going to rotate the tail fins, and that's just going to peg into the toe here. So you're going to orient that carefully because you don't want to break this tab on camera. And then you're just going to sandwich the two legs together. Okay, there we go. Nice and clean. And then we're going to just rotate this whole section around. Let's go ahead and lower the landing gear. And then you're going to have this big piece on the bottom to kind of hide the mess underneath. And you got to carefully get this hip skirt into place, and it's going to tab into the slots in the thigh here. Okay, so now he's pretty stable actually, so that's very nice. And then you're just going to rotate this into place, and then you're going to have this section facing outward because that's going to be the side of the helicopter. And then you kind of just squeeze his fists into the cockpit section here. So it's going to basically look like this on both sides. All right, there we go. And then actually these shoulder pads actually do peg into this propeller joint. And then you have this big open gap in the bottom, and that's kind of nice. Kind of. Unfortunately, they didn't really create it this way, but you can see there's like this gap in the cockpit, so you can kind of slide him feet first, his core robot, and you can kind of fold this panel over, but it just won't close. He barely doesn't fit, and that is so frustrating, because that would be awesome if he could just actually fit in this cockpit section, even if it has to be feet first, because he's definitely not going to go in there head first. His shoulder pads just take up too much space. He can't be wedged in there. So that's like disappointing. He's so close to like fitting into this helicopter mode, but he just can't. So that's a missed opportunity there. And then you're going to see there's a tab right there and here. And then let's see, there's a little tab here and here, and that's going to peg into something up here. Let me see. So this pegs into his forearms. And like I said, I'm not 100% on this plastic. Oh, and then there's a little tab here that's going to peg into there. So this is going to help peg all the helicopter together and hold it nice and tight. Yeah, you just have to have a little bit of caution with these tabs, because I could see these breaking off if you're like in a rush or a little bit careless. And then he does a weird thing where this landing gear kind of doesn't fold out very much anymore. It's enough to still get helicopter mode. And you can see that's his basic helicopter mode, and you're just going to peg these back into place. And then once these are pegged in, they do have kind of a ratchet. So that's like a nice little feature. And here we go. Here's his fully transformed helicopter mode. It's not too bad looking, and it's pretty clean on the bottom, considering it's got this panel, and then the legs look pretty good. So he actually cleans up pretty nicely. It's a little blocky looking for a helicopter. It could benefit from like some smoother angles. It's a little angular, but overall it gets the job done. And then if you get the little core figure, you can see that these don't really scale very well together. Obviously, you can't envision this guy hopping into this helicopter. Even if you folded his legs, it's clear he's just way too big. There's no way he's going to fit in there. So that's too bad it doesn't scale, but if it did, this helicopter would have to be gigantic, so I can see why they didn't do that. And then here he is with the deluxe car. That kind of works. And then here he is with evac again. And it's weird because they actually are kind of the same size now. I'm not even sure how that works. But yeah, evac is definitely my favorite helicopter. He's like 25 years old and still going strong. But yeah, this guy's pretty good. I'd really recommend him. You can maybe still special order him from Sir Toys. That site is kind of shutting down. But I think I'm not in love enough with this figure to keep it, so I'll probably end up selling it. And then I would say that like this helicopter mode compared to like evac, like there's just no comparison. This helicopter, it's kind of like a 6. It's a broken, futuristic looking helicopter that doesn't quite fit together well. It doesn't look quite right, but it's still a really fun figure. I recommend it, especially since it costs like $20 for a leader class figure. Really good deal. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one.